this movie star, TV star who was also producing this show, and she stomped over to me and she got in my face. And she was basically like, "What is your problem? We hired you because you're a burlesque performer." And I was like, "Girl."
Angie Pontani is one of the leading figures in modern day burlesque. But on this particular day, she was standing on the set of a major TV show in the middle of a very uncomfortable situation.
One of the ADs comes over and he was like, "Hey, Angie," and I can't remember exactly how he said it. Like, "Do you want to take off your coat and get up there? You're like the topless dancer." And I was like, "No, that's not what, this was not expressed to me at one singular time in this extreme casting process." Like, to be clear, I'm not a prude. Like, you can go on Google and find butt naked pictures of me 6 months pregnant, eating pizza with Lady Gaga, draped in pearls.
Standing there on set with the entire crew watching and the production burning money by the minute, Angie had a decision to make.
Luckily, this is not my first rodeo, and you're not going to peer pressure me.
1, 2, 3, 4. Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of No Ordinary Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Chris Barron, and each week on the show, I invite a guest to relive their No Ordinary Monday story, an extraordinary event or experience that stands out across their entire career. We'll also discuss the path that led them there, we'll explore what the job is really like behind the scenes, and at the end, they'll reveal the key lessons that they've learned along the way. Now, before we dive in, I just wanted to share a quick bit of good news with you guys. The show has just been awarded Podcast of the Year in the Motivation and Success category at the American Writing Awards. We're still a pretty young show, so it was such a lovely surprise to hear the news. So a huge thanks to the judges for selecting us, but also a huge thanks to you all for listening and watching as well. So many of you send messages and feedback, and all of that input genuinely helps us improve the show week after week. I am really excited to keep growing the show to bigger and better things, and hopefully you guys will be sticking around for the ride. Now, today's episode takes us into the world of burlesque. My guest is Angie Pontani. Angie is one of the most celebrated burlesque performers in the world. She's a former Miss Exotic World, co-founder of the New York Burlesque Festival, and for more than 2 decades, she's been performing on stages across the United States and also around the world. From the highs of performing on major stages and appearing on shows like Conan O'Brien, to the realities of working in an industry that's often misunderstood. As you heard at the start of this episode, that misunderstanding can occasionally lead to some very difficult and awkward situations. So today we'll explore Angie's path into burlesque, what the job is really like behind the glamour, and the unforgettable day when she had to protect her art and her reputation on a film set in front of an entire pissed off production crew. You're listening to No Ordinary Monday. Let's get into the show. Angie, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Hi. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries at all. Where on this beautiful planet are you calling from today?
Right now, I am in Brooklyn, surrounded by snow.
I honestly, I love New York City. I think it's one of those places that when you go there, I don't know if people listening have been there, but it's like you're walking through a movie set because so many movies have been shot there. And the last time
Absolutely.
I went,
I felt like I was in a movie set today when I was outside shoveling and all my neighbors are out shoveling. Everybody's complaining. I was like, I feel like I'm in a movie, which makes it more tolerable.
yeah, it's so romantic. And the last time I was there, it was snowing as well and cold. And me being in Indonesia right now, it's like tropical weather. I've got a t-shirt on, loving it.
Yeah, it's not snowing and cold.
It is not at all, but yeah, that's amazing. And I guess New York City is kind of the perfect place for you to be, considering you're in show business and all
Yes.
the amazing stuff you do. But I want to start off, I want to give people listening a little bit of context to what you do, because I think a lot of people like myself, their sort of touchstone or their reference for burlesque and things like that is probably like something like Moulin Rouge, the movie with Nicole Kidman
Yeah.
and Hugh McGregor. But I guess it's worth just starting there. Okay, so if people are familiar with that and burlesque in general, I mean, what does that get right? What does it get wrong? What is burlesque really like in the reality of things? Yeah.
Well, Moulin Rouge is great. I loved it myself, but it is not really burlesque. It's much more cabaret.
Right.
Burlesque is a satirical art form that really evolved from um, in the like I guess we I mean it goes way way
Yeah.
back to the villages in southern Europe where guys would be rolling around in carts and pulling into villages and do these little satirical plays for the villagers where they would be making fun of politics and religion and relationships and whatever was happening in society, right? So it was all about satire and comedy. It evolved greatly in the late 1800s when a woman, Lydia Thompson, and her British Blondes came to New York from London and they put on this play. I believe it was called Ixion, but they were basically doing Shakespearean plays as women in drag as men, but they were wearing tights and doing all these things. And everybody just lost their banana boat minds because there was a leg in tights. They saw the whisper of an ankle. It was women doing comedy and doing suggestive comedy. And from New York went crazy, the United States went nuts. From that, it evolved. People came in like people like Josephine Baker, much later Tempest Storm, Dixie Evans, these icons of burlesque that kind of created the imagery that we associate it with now, which is, buxom women in gorgeous costumes doing these elaborate strip teases that have this tongue-in-cheek reference. And when you go back to that period in time, especially in like the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, burlesque had a lot of comedy in it, like
Yeah.
slapstick comedy. So these guys would be doing these hokey jokes and the girls would be playing along. And it was just this kind of really deep, ironic entertainment that people went nuts for. They called it the poor man's follies because it was accessible for everyone. And it was one of the first places in American history where women could go out and get a headlining gig on stage, making buckets of money and really controlling their own destiny. So I know that's a
That's
lot of
great.
information. I skipped a lot of things, but that's really what it comes from. And it flourished in the States. These people were making money. They were headlining major shows. They say in like the Great Depression, Broadway went down, burlesque stayed right here. People were going to the shows. And then you fast forward to where we are now, right? In the 60s and the 70s, burlesque petered out and became more of what we associate with gentlemen's clubs. The bands left,
Mm.
the comedy acts left, a lot of the bigger production left because people had TVs and radios at home. It kind of stripped away a lot of the like the big wow of it all. So
Hmm.
it kind of started to morph. And then in the 90s, it came back in the resurgence that we see now, which I'm a part of, which is it very much harkens back to the spirit of the early days of burlesque, like in the golden era, the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. But it has a very much held on to its satirical roots. So a lot of people look at modern burlesque as like extremely feminist, extremely political, extremely body positive, extremely diverse, something that really has helped push the needle in our society and where we are now and how things like women's bodies and sexuality are viewed. Sorry for that
Absolutely.
huge answer.
No, that's absolutely perfect because it is honestly, it is fascinating. The history is incredible. And I'd
History's amazing.
never, again, I was aware of burlesque and
Mhm.
what it was, its sort of role, but I guess I had that sort of like Moulin Rouge esque, and I really reading into it like Moulin Rouge, as I said, it's cabaret, and
Yeah,
cabaret is the big show, and then you might have a burlesque, performance within a cabaret show, that kind of stuff.
for sure. They're
And what's really
definitely
interesting.
cousins.
Yeah, super related. But what's really interesting is, as you said, I was just as you were talking there, in the sort of like 60s, 70s, it kind of it went died off and became different things, and that sort of like exotic dancing aspect of it. Like, do you think that it sort of it mutated into different things, and one of those things was the kind of more like the sort of strip clubby kind of things? I'm just wondering where the birth of that sort of side of things came from.
Well, I think that sort of side of things has been around, longer than we all
True.
know. Maybe it just
Yeah.
wasn't very well documented, but there's always been that side of things. But I think, and my sources of knowledge were directly from a lot of the women who were working at that time. I was
Mm.
fortunate in my career where was able to become friends with people like Dixie Evans, Tempest Storm, Blaze Star, Satan's Angels, like these titans of burlesque. And they all said that, once TV and radio came in, things got more competitive in the shows. So these big theaters suddenly couldn't sell all their seats. It wasn't as exciting for people. And, you start to lose elements of theatricality. And then you start
Mm,
to get more competition amongst the girls because you got to make your money. You got to keep your slot. Who's bringing in people? And they would always tell me that that just pushed certain girls to get like a little bit more adventurous in their performance until ultimately, though, that's all was left was the dancing girl,
mm,
and theatricality need not be involved because it just kind of started to target into a different space. And that's always
interesting.
kind of what I was told, and I think that definitely tracks, when you think
Yeah.
about how entertainment has changed along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to jump in. Um,
Yeah.
your first contact with this, like, this, because this is your life. Like, it's not just something
Yes.
you a side hustle or whatever. Like, when did you first make contact, or when did you first encounter burlesque, and when did you sort of like fall in love with it and go like, okay, this is me. This is what I want to do.
It's pretty wild. My first encounter with burlesque was when I was 17 years old, and I was going to NYU studying theater and dance. I was working at a coffee shop, and one of the guys that I worked with was like, Angie, you have to come and audition for this show that I'm doing. You are gonna lose your mind. You're perfect. Because I've always had a vintage aesthetic. I love old things. Like I've been drawn to it my whole life. And so I would go to work at the coffee shop in my little vintage, like 1960s bell bottoms. And he was like, come see the show. So I went to go see the show. It was called Dutch Wiseman's. It was in an illegal loft in the city in the 90s. It was a raging time to be young. And I loved the show. It was a burlesque show. I had never seen anything like that. There was so many references to like the MGM Technicolor musicals that I grew up watching, like all the big production numbers. But the strip teasers just blew my mind because it's such a beautiful craft when it's done right. It's sexy, but it's hilarious, and it completely disarms you from all these things that we hold so tightly and get so weird about in our lives. It's all put out there for you, and it's funny, and it's just delivered beautifully. I fell in love. I auditioned for the show. I got in the show. They almost died when they found out I was 17. They were like, we're already illegal, but now we're so illegal. I dropped out of college and I
Wow.
stayed with that show for several years. When that show closed, I was like, I have to keep doing this. So I just started to work on my own, and I just kind of found my way through the city. I started a production company with my sisters, where we did tours and shows. We were the world famous Pontani sisters, and it was kind of like like a guerrilla project. We just did it ourselves, performing at bars all over the city. I fell so much in love with it because I love performing and I love the arts, but there is this like no velvet rope approach with burlesque that makes it just really accessible and tangible to everyone. And I love that about it. I mean, those are the arts that I love. I don't want to participate in an art that makes someone feel less than, or that they're not good enough, or they can't afford
Or
it, or they don't
excluded. Yeah.
understand it. I love to be able to provide like a service through the arts that's just you're having a great time. You're enjoying it. And that was it. I fell in love. I never thought it
Amazing.
would be my career.
Oh, really? You just thought I'm super passionate about it. I'm going to try and make some money. And then
Yeah.
everything else just, you worked hard, I guess. I mean, it's not an easy thing to make money from
No.
because you guys had to
No.
work your butts off, I'm sure, especially in
We
New
definitely
York.
worked our butts off because we had to pay the rent.
Yeah.
We worked our butts off and we found a way, and I never thought that so many years later I would still be doing it, but the timing was right, the work ethic was there, it was a perfect storm, I think.
Oh, and you're such a fountain of knowledge when it comes to this sort of stuff as well. And like, was that just acquired through all the different people you interacted
Yeah.
with through the industry?
Yeah. When I started, I didn't even know what burlesque was. I went home on my old like dial-up computer and was like, "Wow, do, 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 do." Like, what is burlesque? When I started to learn about it, it just like blew my mind. I was like, look at these batty punk rock grannies. Like, oh my God. And I just was like, I have to find them. This is amazing. Like, what lives, what stories, what a way to make it in a world that's stacked against you. And I just fell in love with it, and I started to learn more and more about it. And then, as I said before, I was really fortunate that most of them were still alive. So I was able to create these
Yeah.
relationships. And one thing they all loved to do was tell you stories and tell you the history. And I mean, it was really amazing.
And you're just like a sponge absorbing it all. It's so cool.
Absolutely. I'm like, this is history I can get down with.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned story there because I think, whatever art form you're doing, so like I make documentaries and it is an art form in a way. And the way that I tell my stories is through obviously like visuals and sound and editing and all the different tools that we use as filmmakers. But it's like I was looking at stuff what you guys are doing, and it's almost the same thing. Like you guys are storytellers through dance and through performance, and so in the same way, like I guess just sort of deconstruct a burlesque performance in a little bit, and how, because you're also a producer as well as a performer and a choreographer. How does it all come together, and what does it take to put together a performance?
Well, for me, it'll usually start with a song, and I really prefer to work with a live band. That's what I do 90% of the time. So it starts with a song, and I have to have a song that speaks to me in
Mm,
some way, and really inspires me with the movement and with the lyrics, if there are lyrics. And then I'll move on to the costume, those elements. And, in burlesque, there's so many ways to take off these pieces, right? But for me, it's about eking out every single solitary piece because it's a tease. I mean, this is my arm. You see it when I go to the grocery store, but when I'm, pulling off my glove and making it so and sexy, it's part of the journey of the routine. And as each piece of the costume comes off, sometimes you don't know where it's coming off. It's these secret snaps and hidden zippers. It just builds this excitement and this momentum. So, but for me, it usually starts with the song and the concept that comes from there. Like lately, I've been doing a number to Danzig's Mother, and
hmm
it's a total punk rock metal song, and that's not traditional burlesque, but I can perform traditional burlesque to that song. And as a mother, it's a very amazing song to perform to. You can kind of feel the journey of motherhood rage coming out of you as you strip out of this costume. So it becomes very symbolic. And additionally, a lot of people, when they look at these performances, you see the costumes, you hear the music, you see the look, all of this and that. But so much of it also relies upon like lights and blocking and all of these things that go around it. So it's a slow build. It takes a couple months. And then even once you get out of the gate with the pony, you work it out on stage. You feel what works, you feel what doesn't, and you figure it out. But it is storytelling, from very top to very bottom. I can get on stage and I can take off all my clothes and it can be incredibly unexciting. Absolutely. But when you build it with these steps in a burlesque routine, it is you're building tension, and it's a very exciting moment, when you're standing up there and the glove's about to come off your finger and everybody's losing their minds for a finger. It's not the finger, it's the symbolism of the moment, it's the energy of the moment, it's the involvement of the audience. Because that's one of the things about burlesque too. You can go see shows and a lot of times the audience, yes, it's great as an artist to have a great audience. A great audience in a burlesque show fuels that show.
Mm,
They are
yep,
part of the show. They are the jet engine.
yep.
So it feels like, a very together moment.
I think because I was looking at it, I think what's really interesting about it is it's almost like a mixture between like pantomime and ballet and like
Yeah,
all of these different kinds of like theatrical performances like rolled into one and
yeah.
then delivered in this sort of like choreographed but slightly improvised sort of like mechanism, which is I'd never like deconstructed it that way. It's really fascinating.
There's so much there and people don't realize it. And I constantly say burlesque is like the stepchild of like American theatrical history. And people don't want to accept her because they think she's so scandalous, but she's really not. She's really not. And there's so much history. There's so much depth to every performance. There's so much knowledge there. To me, it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful art form.
And like for a documentary, like we might spend, months or even years, trying to, work on a project that creates an hour-long documentary, for example. How
Yeah.
long, for a performance of a few, 5 minutes, I don't know how long performance is, but how long does it take you to prepare that particular performance?
I mean, I think, as somebody could say to me, "Hey, Angie, can you make up a number and go do it tomorrow?" Yeah, of course. I'll go down the stairs and I'll grab something. But like, if I want to do something like, I have a number to Jersey Girl by Bruce Springsteen, but it's reimagined in like a kind of jazz bop version, or like Mother, it's going to take me like 6 months to
Whoa.
get my costume
Yeah.
together, to work on my choreography. But then again, like once I get it on stage, I'm gonna say, "Oh, that doesn't work. That feels too chaotic," "Oh, this is a moment that I have to really milk more," like,
Mm.
"Oh, this is a moment where I have to kind of force myself to stand in silence." So I think for me, it's really a year to get a number to the place where I feel like we're best friends, And I have
Wow.
numbers that I've been doing for 20 years. Once I get it,
Yeah.
it's like you keep it.
And then you can get so much more fun with the improvisational part of it, because you know the routine like
100%.
the back of your hand. Then you're just in like a flow state, and you're
Oh, yeah.
feeding off the audience, and yeah,
Which is the best part. It's the
yeah,
best part. Not being
absolutely.
locked to every 5, 6, 7, 8 is glorious.
I was just thinking, can you study burlesque, or is this something that you actually have to sort of go and live, then go into
You
university and
can
study it?
study it. There are a lot of people that teach classes. I've taught classes at times, but you can study it, and as when you study it, I think you're learning the history and you learn the intention.
Mm.
And you can learn for sure, especially when you're dealing with classic burlesque. There's a lot of posturing. There's a lot of ways that you hold your body that are
Mm.
really important. Like I consulted on Gypsy on Broadway last year, and that
Wow.
was really fun. And that was the whole basis. First, I shared the history, and then we got really into like the body posturing of classic burlesque, because it's important. You're creating these shapes, and
Mm.
anybody can create these shapes, but there's a way to hold yourself when you do it. So, you can learn those things, but you got to get out in the weeds and you got to do it, because the best burlesque performances, they come from the soul, because there
Yeah.
has to be that satire, there has to be that accessibility, there has to be that punk rock attitude. Otherwise, it doesn't sell in the spirit of burlesque.
Yeah. You got to be in the vibe. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
what we kind of mentioned it before, but like, we are in a space with burlesque. It is a striptease. You are removing clothing throughout the whole time. And we're talking about vibe and the audience being on the right wavelength. But like, you must have experiences where the audiences maybe aren't on they get the wrong end of things. Like they struggle with knowing where that line is and what the performance versus what they think it might be. And, it's exotic dancing and all that kind of stuff. Have you had experiences like that where,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, of course, especially in the early days, because when I started in burlesque, it wasn't something that people knew what it was. I remember trying to book club gigs, and they would be like, "Well, what do you do?" And I'll be like, "Well, I'm going to send you a press kit. I'm going to mail you this VHS tape and blah, blah, blah." I will say, in my career, I am very fortunate that my good experiences outweigh my bad,
mm,
and also that most of my fans are ladies. But there have
nice.
definitely been spaces that I have walked into where the expectation did not meet the reality of the service being provided.
And just what in one particular story that we talked about before we jumped on the call was
Yes,
with the what was it, Old Gentlemen's Club or something like that. What was
it
walk
was
us through that one?
it was a country club,
Oh
which
my
should
god,
have been
yeah.
my first red flag. This is when I was really young. I was probably not even 21, I was playing 19, 20. I had just started after the show that I was in closed, and I was so ambitious and so excited. And so I said, I'm going to make all these costumes. I'm going to get all the girls together. We're going to create our own show. And I did. And I had gotten contacted by a party planner, and she said, there is a country club in upstate New York, and they want you to put together a bunch of girls in these showgirl costumes and come up, and the guys are going to be playing golf, and you're going to walk around with like trays of candy. And I think the thing that guts me the most about this story is how excited I was, like how I thought this was such a great moment for me. I had
Yeah.
made all the costumes. I took pictures of them with my Polaroid. I sent them to the event planner. They were beautiful. The girls look beautiful. So we get the gig, and I'm like, this is the start of me, getting out there, getting my name out, getting these great gigs. So we get the gig. We get in this Sprinter van and we head upstate and we get to the golf course, the country club, and we're in our costumes and we're walking around, passing out these candies. And it's a bunch of old, very rich dudes playing golf. And, I didn't think I was happy. I was like, this is amazing. Have a fake cigarette and a lollipop. And we were having a great time. And I thought everything was cool. And then we had a driver, a guy from Brooklyn, super nice. I never met him before. He was just assigned to drive us up to this country club and then back. And he pulls me aside. Had a little break, and I went back and he pulled me aside and he was like, Angie, you know, they came up to me and they asked me to leave. Like they told me they want me to leave and they, were gonna give me $100 like to go to the movies. And I was like, why? And then they showed me all these pictures. And I mean, this is like the 90s or the early
Yeah.
2000s. So they were like showing him like a photo album of last year's party. He's like, and I don't think, you guys know what they think that you guys are going to do. He was like, it was like really bad. And I was like my brain like exploded. I was
Yeah.
so angry, so disappointed, and I was the leader of the group and I didn't really know what to do. I mean, I had my sisters with me, so that was good. Um, but it was hard. It was like
Yeah.
very gutting. Like these guys thought we were gonna, you know,
Yeah.
go full happy ending.
Yeah.
And we were standing there in little showgirl costumes and trays of candy, like little
Oh
doofuses,
man.
like, oh, here's our big break.
Oh
So we
man.
left. We left. And,
Just
and some of the girls were crying on the way back, like they were triggered and so sad. And, we didn't make a big deal out of it. I think I don't even really remember exactly how it went down. I think my sister and I went to the guy who was in charge and we're like, you tried to send our driver. Like, first of all, that's
yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
And thank God for this guy that I didn't know from Adam. I mean,
Yeah.
he could have taken the $100. I'm sure he could have used it. We all could have. We were all broke and gone, but he didn't. And I said, we're leaving. We heard, we're out. We got our little candy trays and our little sad costumes that I worked so hard on, jumped in the Sprinter van and went back to Brooklyn. And it was a sad, my one sister was raging. I was kind of just in shock. And like some of the girls were crying. Like it
Yeah.
was just really, I mean, it really felt bad.
Was that like a wake up call? You're like, oof, like you kind of had this like fresh enthusiasm, like, oh, I'm going into this amazing like art form. And then you're like,
Yes,
okay, all right, this is the real world and you got to be careful.
absolutely. I mean, up until that point, I had kind of been like in a bubble here in New York where like, people get it, people understand it. We work in this world, we live in this world, we understand it. And that was, I think, the first time that I was really like, holy crap. And just
Wow.
outraged. I was very, very outraged. And, I I reached out to the woman who booked us and I told her and she like laughed it off. And she
Oh
was
my
like, "Well, you know how
gosh.
guys can be."
Wow.
It was super wow. And, it's just one of those things too, like, when I look back on it, I thank God. I mean, there were probably about 6 of us there,
Yeah.
so we were a strong group together, and
True.
we had all worked together on different projects. We all came from, like, dance and theater backgrounds. So, I am very thankful that we were all there together, that it wasn't, like, just 2 or 3 of us, and, maybe you feel a little paralyzed and frightened in that moment. But yeah, I mean, it was a wake-up call for sure. In fact, after that, I never went to another gig without a security person. I added that to our contract that we need a security person, and just by adding that into your contract, that kind of sets an expectation of behavior when you walk into the room. So even if that security person was my friend Mel, it didn't matter because they were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, they're bringing security."
Yeah.
So it kind of insulates you a
It's
little bit. But
yeah,
yeah,
it's a
it was a wake-up
message.
call for sure.
Yeah,
And it was a
absolutely.
gross wake-up call because I was like,
Oh
"You
man.
guys are all disgusting because is nobody in this room is under 65, and we were all like 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and everybody's got a wedding ring on, and
Yeah.
you're in your country club with your fancy cars playing golf, like,
Yeah.
gross."
I think that what that does, it sets us up for this sort of, because every episode I love guests coming on and sharing sort of the most sort of like significant stories of their career. I know that was a big one, but
Yes.
you've lived a life and you've got so
Oh,
many stories to tell. And what that story does, I think it sets up nicely for our big sort of like No Ordinary Monday story. And we're chatting off before we recorded, and you've got two, which I think is really cool. And I wanted to start rolling off that one off onto the first one, which I think is a sort of, and the reason I'm going to go for two is because they show such amazing polar opposites of this industry. And the first one kind of rolls off the back of that one, but you're a little bit older. And the
yeah.
second one kind of shows, okay, it can be incredible and amazing. And, it's such a great message and story as well. So can you just roll us into that first story?
Yes, I shall set the scene. It's
Yes.
2021, fresh off the pandemic. Haven't been working a lot. And I'm going to pick up my daughter at her preschool, and I get a phone call from a casting director that knows my husband. They know me from Instagram. And she says, Angie, I have got a role for you on this TV show, which is on a major network. I'm not gonna say what it was, but it's a major network. And she said, we need like a sexy go-go dancer, and we really want you. And I want to just make sure you're available, and then I'm going to confirm it. So I said, oh yeah, I love go-go dancing. Like that's another thing aside from burlesque. I love go-go. I think go-go is a part of burlesque history, and I love classic, 50s and 60s go-go. It's so much fun. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God, 80s go-go dancer. I'm gonna have like maybe some neon, like a spiked belt. This is gonna be so much fun. So she said, I just have to talk to the star of the show, who's also the producer, who is a pretty big Hollywood celebrity. And she's going to go look at your Instagram. And if she likes you, we're go. So that happened. Another casting director called me back. They said, she likes you. We really want you. And I said, okay, cool. Can you tell me a little bit more about the part? And he was like, well, it's a go-go dancer. It's the 80s. She's a little bit punk rock. And you're just going to be dancing in the background of this scene. Now, again, I've done a lot of TV and I've done a lot of film at this point in my life. And every time I do it, I'm doing it as Angie Pontani.
Yep.
It's like I may be in the background in a club, but I'm doing it because the casting director saw me somewhere and was like, we want you. Bring your costumes, do your makeup, do your hair. You're Angie Pontani in the background of this. So I said, okay. And I said, just to be sure, I was like, tell me what the parameters of the role are. What's the nudity? And he said, there's no nudity. It's just you and your go-go. Maybe it's like implied nudity, like maybe it's open back, but you have pasties and long hair, but you're good. So I was like, okay, cool. Super exciting. I
And
love doing TV.
go-go's not like, in terms of like a dance form, it's not like full striptease. It's kind of as
Yeah,
burlesque.
go-go is like you're dancing, in a cage at the Whiskey A Go-Go in the
Gotcha. Yeah.
60s,
Yeah.
or you're Tora Satana in the 50s, or you're doing the twist and you're doing the frug. Like go-go is a
Right.
legit form of dance history. So I was very excited about it. I love doing this kind of stuff. It's always super fun. People get excited. Great resume hit. Always make some connections. So I go to the fitting and I was like, oh, this outfit is not what I thought. It was like this leather top and a leather mini skirt. And then I was like, well, whatever. TV doesn't always get their history and their dressing and their vibes right. It's fine. So I have my costume, everything's set. I show up on set. And the first thing that happened that I didn't dig was like, I've always got my long nails. They cut
Hmm.
my nails off. And I was like, why are we cutting my nails off? And they were like, well, you're a little bit of a rough go-go dancer. And I was like, a rough go-go dancer? Like, what? They did my hair and my makeup. It was like very Pat Benatar if she like didn't take a shower for 5 days. Like I was like not vibing with this
Yeah.
completely, but I'm like, whatever. Okay. I don't like the look. That's happened to me before. Um, and then we're about to go to set and I put on my costume and the woman was like, well, don't put on your top. We'll put it on there. And I was like, what? That's totally weird. But then I was like, well, maybe they just don't want me walking through the streets in a bikini top.
Mm.
Like, I don't know. So I put on my coat and we walk over there and we're sitting on set. And like we are on set. So like for people who've never been on set before, we were in a bar, there were cameras, lights, all this like actors are in position. Like it is you're in a working environment where everything is just going and going and going. So I go over there and I'm sitting at a table with one of the other extras and one of the ADs comes over and he was like, "Hey Angie, just want to make sure you're cool with everything." And I was like, "Well, I'm cool." And he's like, "Oh, I love that you're like so easygoing. Not everybody's so easygoing." And I was like, "Well, Yeah, we're not doing brain surgery here. I'm not about to do like a brain transplant. Like, why might not be easygoing? And he was like, "Oh, you're so cool." And I was like, "Wait a minute." I was like, "Yeah, I'm
Red
totally
flags, yeah.
cool." Like, I was like something my red flags started to pop up a little bit. And he's like, "Well, you're on next, like," and I can't remember exactly how he said it. Like, "Do you want to take off your coat and get up there?" And
Okay.
I was like, "Excuse me?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Well, you're like the topless dancer." And I was like, "I am not the topless dancer." He's like, "You're the topless dancer. That's what this role is." And I was like, "No, no, that's not what this was not expressed to me at one singular time in this extreme casting process. No one said that to me. Like, absolutely not. That's not what this role is, especially now that I'm like a cracked out, like, you want me to be so basically, I'm not an 80s go-go dancer. I'm a cracked out stripper
Yeah.
at the end of the rope. Like, no. And I was just like, absolutely not. Because
Yeah.
also I've done television. Like, if there's nudity, if there's like sexually suggestive behavior, there is a pay rate that goes with that, number one, which I wasn't getting. And then there are a lot of on-set accommodation to ensure that everybody feels comfortable and
Yeah.
cool. None of that was done here. I didn't get any sides, which is like they send you the script that tells
Yeah.
you. And so I saw that he got very mad, and he was like, "Well, what's changed in you?" And I was like, "Nothing's changed in me. I did not agree to this. I'm not an actress. Like, I do TV when people want me to do TV as me. Like,
Yeah.
I would not have said yes to this and wasted anybody's time. Like, because why would I do that? I'm not doing this." So he was like stomped away. And then he went and he got this movie star, TV star who was also producing this show. And she stomped over to me and she got in my face. And she was basically like, "What is your problem? We hired you because you're a burlesque performer." And I was like, if you took
Wow.
1 second to look at my resume,
Yeah.
my history, my body of work, my Instagram account, where would you see the correlation to this part?
Yeah.
And she was like, "Well, why did you change your mind?" Everybody just kept saying to me, "Why did you change your mind?"
Hmm.
And I said, "I'd never changed my mind. This wasn't expressed to me." And she's like, "Well, you're a burlesque performer." And I was like, "I am a burlesque performer. And when I do my burlesque performance, it's in a highly curated environment
Mm-hmm.
that I create to project an image of me and my nudity in a way that I want it to be done." And,
Oh
like, to be
man.
clear, I'm not a prude. Like, you can go on Google and find butt naked pictures of me 6 months pregnant, eating pizza with Lady Gaga, draped in pearls, because that to me
What a
is
sentence.
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But this to me is not the image that I want to project. I don't want to project myself as a cracked out, topless
Yeah.
stripper in a bar for a punchline in your lame ass script.
Yeah.
And this did not happen in any singular way that it should have happened. Now, we are in a room, everybody, all the guys, like all the grips and the cameramen, they were
Yeah.
pissed
Yeah.
because now
They can't do the scene.
you've
Yeah.
worked in film.
Yeah. And money's burning. People are there
Money, I
getting,
am
yeah.
burning money, but
Yeah.
they're burning money because they were a
Yeah.
disorganized mess. And I was just like, "You are not going to peer pressure me into doing this. Like, I have clearly
It's
set my
crazy.
boundaries." So then she stomps away, and I mean, she was literally in my grill, and I was like, "Girl, mm."
Have you done your
He's
mandatory, set, like
Yes, well,
training?
we had to do, when you do any TV now, they make you do like a training, like where it's like, I don't know what you call it, like what is appropriate in a
Yeah.
workplace, like
Yeah.
appropriate workplace behavior.
Yeah.
Is it appropriate to squeeze someone's butt cheeks on the way to craft services? Is it
Yeah.
appropriate to say, "Hey, you're looking really good after you lost 20 pounds"? Like, is it appropriate to ask somebody about their sex life? I had to do all these stupid videos. And here I am getting pressured by the AD, the star and producer of the show, to take off my top and just suck it up and get up there and do it. And I said no. And then they went and they called the first person from casting And they literally came up to me and shoved the phone in my face. And this woman was like, I need you to do this. We are losing so much money. I can't get anybody else there. Like, why are you being like this? You're a burlesque dancer. Like, that's all they kept saying to me, too. And I
Yeah.
was just like, it is so ironic to be in this clearly performative space that talks about protecting people's rights and protecting people's autonomy of body and choice. But here, when you're the ones who made the mistake, but your bills are spending, you don't care. And
Yeah.
you're trying to peer pressure me. But luckily, this is not my first rodeo, and you're
Yeah.
not going to peer pressure me. And so I basically just said to her, I'm absolutely not doing this. I would have never I would have that day that you called me when I was waiting to pick up my daughter, I would have been like, "You know what, guys? This isn't for me, but here's 5 people that I know that would probably they're actresses, they
Yeah.
would love to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not here to waste anybody's time." But now here I am on set because of your incompetence. Everybody on this set hates me for standing my ground. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure everybody in there is like, Angie Pontani's an asshole. And I'm, like, literally fighting with the star of the show.
Yeah.
And it was a really shitty moment, but I was actually so mad in that moment that I wasn't feeling shitty about it. I was just like, screw you guys.
Yeah.
Like, screw you guys for treating me like this. And I'm actually happy. I'm so happy that I'm sitting here right now and not some not me when I was at
Yeah.
the golf course. You
Yep.
know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, I'm so
Exactly.
happy that I'm sitting here right now. Screw you. I'm not going to do it. And I'm going to report you guys all to the union. So they were like, what will you do? So we did come up with a compromise. I said, get me a pair of pasties and get me a long wig that I don't look like such a psycho in, and I'll do it. And I did it. And so they like literally cut my head out of everything. They all hate him. I got so bad. They cut my head out of everything. We shoot the scene. And we're shooting in the East Village. We're in this bar, Holding, which is where they keep everybody knows, a couple blocks away. We're done shooting. I put on my coat. I'm walking out the door, and the AD, I'm literally about to walk out the door. The AD says to me, well, good luck with your burlesque career, Angie, or whatever hobby it is. And then the door closes behind me, and nobody walked me back to Holding.
Oh my
Luckily, I
God.
don't need anybody to walk me anywhere because I'm totally capable. But I was just like, oh my God.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
They're worse
Unbelievable
than
the
the golf
behavior.
course guys to me.
Yeah, in some ways, but I think it's the hypocrisy, right? They sort of like,
Absolutely.
oh, we are making this big show. It's all, everyone's professional. We're all like top of our game. And it comes down, it just shows when it comes down to it, when they're under time, under pressure, like all of that stuff just gets stripped away because it's not
Oh,
important in their minds.
absolutely. But like, Chris, I think about it a lot. Like, if I were in the reverse position, if I had a project that I was doing and there was a misunderstanding like this, I would really stake my life on the fact that I would never treat somebody like that.
Yeah.
I would immediately switch to problem solving.
Yep.
And then I would rip whoever hired this person, and I would have not devolved to that type of behavior because I
Yep.
wouldn't do that to another person, especially a woman, especially on a
Yeah.
set I mean, they didn't even take me to another room. All of this was happening surrounded by everybody. So that was
Man.
like a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And
Everyone's
I'm
looking
just
at
like,
you.
"Nah, some people are just bad people."
Good on you for standing your ground. But like, do you think, because I know that, I work in documentaries, not in scripted, but like in scripted, I know that there are script changes in the last minute. Do you think that that was like some creative or some writer was like, oh, let's just change it so it's a cracked out stripper rather than this like go-go dancer? Or do you think that was just a sort of misconstrued, like, oh, she's burlesque, so she'll just be a stripper?
I will 100% say I think it was misconstrued because when I went back to Holding and I went to the hair and makeup girls to like get de-wigged and all of this, and they heard what happened and they were like dying and they're like, we can't believe that they were like, they didn't send you the
Yeah.
sides. Like, this is the script. Like,
Yeah.
we all
Yeah.
saw it.
Oh
And
my
they just
God.
didn't and I think they just didn't send it to me because they thought, "Oh, she's a burlesque performer." I'm sure the people who all said they went and looked at my Instagram didn't go and look at my Insta and when I perform, I am up there in these impeccable, $1,000 costumes on these beautiful stages projecting this gorgeous illusion of, like, supreme femininity, and that's what I do. So I'm like, "You guys didn't do your
No.
homework. You
Yeah.
knew what it was going to be. And then when it came down to it, it was too late to get somebody else. And then, but then I reported it to the union too, because I was like, it was completely outrageous.
Yeah.
And they disappointed me as well. I called them. They said, send us a written report. I sent them the written report. They never got back to me. And I had to write them back again and be like, what's going on? And then they wrote me back and they were like, oh, we're so sorry. They were really sorry how this went down. It was just a miscommunication.
Oh,
And in my
jeez.
head, I'm like, there's just literally no decency here. Like,
No.
girl, you owe me a fruit basket at
Yeah.
least, an apology. Like, I mean, have some accountability. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, it was just really gross. And from people that are just so performative when they're actually part of the problem.
Yeah. I think what it shows is obviously just it's so important to stand your ground if you
Yes.
don't be pressured into that kind of situation. And it's
No.
great
And
that you, as you said, you were not 19 and you had the
no.
experience before. You knew how to behave.
No, and I actually felt like really empowered in that moment,
Yeah.
standing up for myself, negotiating to come up with a reasonable solution when I really
Yeah.
could have just walked out with my middle finger flying in the air,
Yeah.
and just been
You
like,
did them a
screw you
favor.
guys.
Yeah. Man.
I did, but it was definitely one of those things where you're just like, man, this business,
Yeah. It'll eat you up if you're not careful. But
it
I mean,
will.
saying that, you also have another experience which shows like this is an incredible business.
Yes.
If you have the right attitude, and you did in that rate, it's making the right decisions at the right time. And I think that's the hardest
Yes.
part about show business at some points. But take us through this next story.
Yes. So this next story was also pretty early on in my career. We knew Amy Sedaris, the comedian and craft queen. We worked at a restaurant called Marion's where she was a waitress before she got really popular. And Amy Sedaris was going on the Conan O'Brien show. And my sisters and I danced at this restaurant. Every Saturday night we would do all these really fun dance numbers. And Amy loved us, and she said, "I want you guys to come on Conan with me. And I want you to make me a costume. And I'm the fourth Pontani sister, but I'm going to be a hot mess. Like, you guys, me and my sisters were tight. We were like the short Rockettes. She's like, you guys are going to be dancing, nailing everything. I have hairy armpits. I'm a mess. Like, I'm just spinning the wrong way. It's going to be a whole gag." So we were like, we made it.
Yeah.
We made it. This is it. This is going to kick us into the next level. We're going to be on national TV with Amy Sedaris. Oh my God, completely amazing. Made her a costume. We did choreography. She learned it. We get to Conan. We're sitting in the dressing room. Everyone was so lovely. The cast and the crew of the Conan O'Brien show in New York City was just the top of the pops. So we're sitting there. We're waiting to go on. We're waiting to go on. Now, mind you, we were so excited. We literally called every human that we knew. We sent out postcards to our mailing list because this was like before digital mailing lists. This was probably like 2003.
Yeah.
And we said, watch the Conan O'Brien show. We're going to be on the Conan O'Brien show. Pontani Sisters, Conan O'Brien. Pontani Sisters are the best. And we're sitting in the dressing room, and Dick Clark was on this particular night. Rest in peace, Dick Clark.
Mhm.
And he was just talking and talking. And we're watching from our green room, and we're like, okay, there's really not much time left in the show. There's not much time left in the show. And one of the production assistants comes in, and they were just like, guys, we are so sorry. We're over time, and we have to cut the skit.
Oh,
And we were just,
God.
I mean, take my heart out of my body and just whack it away.
Oh my
It
God.
was heartbreaking. We thought we had gotten such a big break. Like, these things don't come around much. You got to
No.
be ready. And then we're there literally in costume. Like, you're like waiting to go to the prom and your date doesn't show, and and we had told everybody to watch it. And
That's
this
the
was
worst
pre
part.
Instagram where we could be like, it's canceled, rescheduled. There was no damage control. Like,
No.
oh, so we went and we cried our tears into a bottle of red wine, and we were so sad. And, everybody at Conan felt really bad because we had rehearsed this. Like, it was brutal. We were really gutted. So, on its face, this is a very sad story. We go on tour. We're completing this tour with this great band, Low Straitjackets, that we used to work with. We were on our way home. We're in the Smoky Mountains. This is probably like 3 or 4 months later. We're like taking a little hike in the mountains, which was not really a hike. It was like a scenic walkway. We
Yeah.
wouldn't really go in the woods. And we're there, and my cell phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's the casting director from Conan. And she was like, how quickly can you get here? And I was like, we're in the Smoky Mountains. And she's like, well, you have, I don't remember. She was like, you have 12 hours to get here, whatever it was.
What?
And we were like, we will be there.
How long
Me
is
and my
that
sisters.
drive for like?
I think it was like an 8-hour drive. I'm pretty sure we drove through the night to get there, drove right into Midtown, went right to 30 Rock, parked in a garage, got out with like the mud on our boots from the Smoky Mountains, and went right in there. And they were just like, okay, we're gonna, we got you guys. We're gonna costume you. Well, actually, we had our own costumes because we were on tour. They were like, what do you have?
Yeah.
So we went in, and that particular skit, I think it was the he can't waste time skit. So they were like, go to Max's, go to the music room, go see Max Weinberg. We're like sitting there, we're like scuzzy from being on the road, going to Max Weinberg's, and he's like, what key do you guys sing in? And we weren't singers, Me and my one sister, we sing like for kicks. My other sister was like outraged, and we were like, well, we can sing in so many different keys. Like, what are you thinking? And he was like, well, here's what I need you to sing. And it was like, he can't waste time. He can't waste time. Conan O'Brien can't waste time. And we were like, I think I said it because I could see my one sister was dying. And I was like, could we sing it as opera singers? And he was like, yeah, that's great. So we totally were like, ooh. And we sang it like that, put on our tap shoes, put on our little rose costumes I think we wore for that. Costume made us these little headdresses. And we did this whole hilarious skit with Conan and his writers, which are all also hilarious comedians. We did it. It was amazing. And after we did that, we were pretty much semi-regular on the Conan O'Brien show.
Wow.
Anytime they needed like any kind of like dancing girl,
Yeah.
they called us. We tap danced with a hot dog. We pushed Abe Vigoda in a tub and sang about that as well. We danced with a horse. There was something with a horse. I can't even remember, but it was just so amazing because from that like initial complete disappointment
Yep.
came this great relationship with great people that we sustained for so many years. We danced on the show with this band, Low Straight Jackets all the time. Like it was amazing relationship. And I think it just shows you that sometimes the greatest disappointments can be the beginning of a new beautiful relationship.
It just shows you, because it's kind of the same in, I guess, in any industry. It's like you have to go for these things. Take a leap of faith, even if it doesn't work out. They know you. You've
Yes.
they. It's not like they owe you one, but they're like, if you're in their mind now, now that they've met you and you've kind of come all the way in, even if it didn't work out, they're like, do you remember those girls that were amazing? We had to cut them from the show, but we'll bring them back for this because.
Yep.
Probably it might be a subconscious thing, but it's like we do owe them one because we cut them from the show. So you're kind of first at the top of the list, and then you guys got it, and then that was it. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
And I think a lot of it too is like how you behave in the moment, right? It's
Yeah.
like I've always tried to rise to every occasion, and that was a bummer, but we were still grateful for the opportunity and just to
Yeah.
be in that space because that was such an amazing experience. So it's like I think the way that you behave is really important, and I think good brings good, and there
Yeah.
are great people in this industry where one thing leads to another. And then there are really bad people, and you kind of gotta have your antenna up all the time so you can differentiate between them, because life is short, and the choices that you make as you take this showbiz path are really important.
Absolutely. And I think you could have been super mad. You'd be like, "What?
Yeah.
Why are you
Oh,
canceling?
totally.
You canceled us? What? Are you kidding me? Like, do you know who we are?"
100. I've had to cancel people from shows at like a club with seats 150 people with advance notice, and they get mad at me and they
Yeah.
write me like a mean email. I'm like,
Yeah.
this business, the ball is round. It rolls every which way, and as long as you're honest and upfront and direct with people, you have to be willing to accept that it's a very, very fluid situation all the time. And that
Absolutely.
when you meet people that work well, you want to work with them because you need that person who can adapt, and even like with the Conan stuff, we never knew what we were doing until we got there. And then
Yeah.
they'd be, can you do this? Yeah, we can do it. No problem. What do you want me to do? We got it.
And you'd mentioned earlier Lady Gaga.
Yes.
And did you meet her after the Conan? Obviously got your big leap on Conan, and then you met her after, or how did that relationship start?
Yeah, yes, that would have been after. Conan was really early on. But Lady Gaga, I met after probably like 2010 or
Hmm.
so. I mean, we had crossed paths because she was in a similar scene here in the city. I used to do shows at the Slipper Room a lot. She did shows at the Slipper Room. So we were kind of coming up in the same scene around the same time. But also, my husband was very good friends with her, and he used to
Okay.
bartend at
Yeah.
the bar where she would go dance. So that's how we
Nice.
really made our connection. So then, when she took off, and became this amazing,
Yeah.
phenomenon, he still plays with her quite a bit. So we've done a lot of projects together. Hence the
That's
naked
super
eating
cool.
pizza,
Yeah.
which also came at the drop of a dime.
Yeah. That was just like, okay, that was some sort of name drop to throw in there. I was like, yeah.
With really weird circumstance around it too.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's super cool. You got a chance to work with Lady Gaga. You do a lot of Vegas stuff as well.
Oh
Like you
yeah.
guys are busy.
Absolutely. And she's amazing too because like she's a person who has really given me a platform so many times to
Yeah.
do what I do as I do it. I mean, a lot of times when people want to present burlesque on a bigger stage or a national stage, they really want to water it down. And she has always been like when I performed in Vegas with her and her jazz show, I was like, "Do you really want me to do what I do?" And she's like, "I want you to do what I do. What do you do?" And I was like, "Pasties, twirling, the whole thing?" She's like, "Yes." And I mean, it doesn't seem like it's so shocking, but it is in this world because it's
Yeah.
like there's something about burlesque, and I can get deep into the theories of it, but it's like when a woman owns her own agency and it has hints of sexuality, and that woman is having a good time and isn't ashamed, and she's showing it off and she's spreading joy with it and she's empowering other women with it, it like seems to, create a lot of censorship. And she just gave me that agency to kind of get on that major Vegas stage and do what I do, no holds barred within her show. And kudos to her for that,
Amazing.
because not everybody does that. They'll be like, we
Yeah.
want you to do it here, but, can you wear a net bra? And can you wear net bottoms so that we can still see everything, but it's just through sheer
Yeah.
mesh?
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, I want to get sort of a bit more reflective on your career because, as you say, you've done so much cool stuff across your career, and compared to the beginning of your career, I mean, what does success look like at the beginning and what does success look like now to you? Because way back in like 2008 or before, like you were was it Miss Exotic World in 2008, which is
Yeah.
like a huge achievement in like burlesque and all that sort of stuff. It's like, I don't know, you compare it to like being Mr. Universe, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like
Yes.
kind
Oh,
of
I
thing.
love Arnold. Totally.
Have you met him,
Yeah.
Arnold? Have you met Arnold?
Oh, I can't listen, there are few people that I am gonna turn into a doofus with, but if I ever met Arnold, I would
Okay.
be a total doofus. No, I just love him. I actually I'm like love bodybuilding. So I've
Yeah.
like read some of his books, I've studied some of his methods. Like I'm a big Arnold fan,
So you were
but I
like,
haven't met him.
being Miss Exotic World 2008, like, huge achievement. I mean, what does, now that you've had like all these sort of different things you've done, like, does success mean something different? You're trying to achieve something different? Like, what does, a big success look like in Angie Pontani these days?
Well, I think, starting out for myself, I was just like driven by this hunger, right?
Mm,
Like I just wanted to work. I wanted people to see my work. I wanted to be able to afford to live by doing my work. So there was just this real like energy that I had when I was coming out that I was just like, what do I have to do to work? What do I have to do to get out there? Like I would wake up in the morning, 7 o'clock, click, clack, click. Who am I emailing? Who am
yeah.
I faxing? Where am I gigging? What do I have to do? I was so hungry and that benefited me a lot, and I worked my butt off. Now from where I'm at now, I still in so many ways have that same energy. I think now success to me is kind of just creating something that can be enduring. I love to share the history of burlesque. I love to talk to other entertainers about their journey. I feel at this stage in my life, I've taken on like a bit more responsibility about what I'm sharing with the people that come after me, you know? I'm not a gatekeeper. Like,
Mm,
I want to share my experiences. I want to help people be better. I want to help burlesque, gain its rightful place in the history of American theater as a respected art form because it is. And I think that's a lot about what success means to me these days. So when I do my shows now, when I was like younger, I was working like 5 nights a week. I was doing everything and anything. I don't do that now. I've got more limited runs that I do, more limited select appearances. But above all, I'm just trying to, share the history and encase that and get more of these stories about what burlesque is and what it's about out there and to empower more performers to
mm,
do what they love and that you don't have to follow the path, because I think one of the best things about burlesque, and this is what appealed to me, like once I realized what it was, I was like, so wait, I can be a performer, I can be an actress, I can be a dancer, I can be a singer, I can do all the things that I love to do within this genre and I can control it myself. So I'm creating my own narrative. And
mm.
I've always really, really liked that about it, and my whole career, everybody's like, oh, burlesque, where's it going to take you? What are you going to do with it? Well, I've done quite a bit. So, so ha, take that,
And
you
you've
know, and, and,
also,
and that's what's
yeah,
important to me.
and you were the co-founder of the New York Burlesque
Hmm.
Festival. Is that what it is?
New York Burlesque Festival. I
Yeah.
founded that with my friend Jen over 22 years ago. And that was one of the first, we call neo burlesque the new burlesque revival that came about in the 90s. We refer to it as neo burlesque. So that was one of the first neo burlesque festivals. And we brought together performers. And again, you're talking about a time where there wasn't like all this internet connection. So there were
Yeah.
people in New Orleans, people in California, people in San Francisco, people in New York, people in Boston. We brought them all together to New York and put on like 2 days of show. And that festival grew tremendously till where at its height, it was 4 nights, sold out every night, people from around the world. So, we connected a lot of dots and we really helped to perpetuate the course of burlesque in the modern world and to bring it to the vernacular of the everyday people.
Yeah.
When I started, people were like, what's burlesque? Now everybody has some idea. And even if it's slightly off, even if they're Moulin Rouge or Cher's burlesque movie, they know what the word, they kind of know what it means. They have a reference to it. And
Absolutely.
that event was certainly part of that.
Yeah. No, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, I think that not only do I like part of this show is that we're telling stories about people's careers and all that sort of stuff, which are always super fascinating, but it also offers people listening, if they are interested in following the footsteps of that particular guest. And I guess for anyone listening to this, who've always dreamt of trying to get into this industry or make a living or make a career from it, any practical advice for anyone listening that might want to sort of follow in your footsteps?
Do it. Just do it. Look around, look in your town. There's probably a troupe, there's probably a show. Like, go see them, introduce yourself, think about what you want to do, and then just do it. The hardest part is kind of like just stepping into it. Like, you can think about it and twist yourself out of it, but just step into it. And then with this art form, particularly, when you do that, always be true to yourself. It's good to take classes. It's vital to learn your history. It's vital to rehearse and pay attention to detail, but stay true to yourself in your performance. Like for myself, I'm a classical burlesque performer, and I have a lot of, things that I do in my performance that are a specific style.
Mm,
But if someone who is kind of more like punk rock or more like, inclined to be inspired from a different source, follow your source. Don't try to be something that you're not, because burlesque tells no lies. So if you get on stage and you're trying to sell something that you're not connected with, you are not going to resonate as a performer. So always be true to yourself. But man, it's like just like any other art form, rehearse, get comfortable in your body, get comfortable with
mm.
what you're doing, and then just do it. That's the most important thing. But there is access to burlesque everywhere. That's one glorious thing about it. You can find a stage pretty much in any town, and don't be a jerk in the dressing room. That's also really important.
Yeah, I mean, just don't be a jerk, full stop. I mean,
Just don't be a
especially,
jerk
yeah,
anywhere. Anywhere. Clean up after yourself in the dressing room. Don't take up too much space.
yeah.
Be friendly,
Got lots
even
of
if you're
makeup, I'm
nervous.
sure. Like, that sort of
Yes.
like,
Oh,
yeah.
sometimes I'll walk in, I'll be like, no, 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 no.
And you mentioned before you've got a daughter.
Yes, I
And
do.
I was, jumping on your Instagram. Unlike the producers on that show that you were making, which is pretty tough. I did watch your Instagram and have a look at stuff, and you've got your daughter on there, and you're teaching her, you're dancing a little bit, teaching a little bit.
Yeah.
If she kind of grows up a little bit more and has an interest in burlesque, would you encourage her to jump in as a career, or?
I mean, as a full-fledged adult, if that was something she was interested in, I would certainly encourage her to do it. Personally, I hope that she doesn't follow showbiz because it is a pretty brutal path, you know? I
Yeah,
mean,
it's tough.
I am so thankful and, I have a husband who's also in showbiz, so, it works for us, but, showbiz is tough, man, and you have
Hmm.
to make a lot of sacrifices, you have to miss a lot of stuff, you have to be available 24/7. You have to accept periods of instability. But what I do love is that my daughter has been able to grow up in an environment where she is surrounded by so many different people. I mean, when we have our residency in Vegas, obviously she comes with us. She comes with us everywhere I could take her. I take her. She came on tour with me in Italy, Canada. And she comes with us when we're in Vegas and she just gets to have these amazing experiences. So she's backstage in the green room and she's hanging out with the showgirls and the gospel choir, and the magicians, and they're showing her tricks. And like she's surrounded by this big, beautiful family
Yeah.
that all love her so much and are just showing her so many different ways that you can, follow your path. And I really, really love that for her. I'm just like, one day this kid's gonna write a book. I hope it's good.
What an amazing upbringing. Again, like traveling, I was very lucky to travel when I was a kid as well. And it's transformative, meeting
Oh,
different
yeah.
people, going different places, seeing different cultures. Like, just, it's so good as a child to be exposed to that.
Absolutely, and I'm always like, "Sis, if you have any questions about anything, just let me know," and she's just like, "This is cool. I love it." I've got
Rolling with it.
pictures of her stage side at Lady Gaga concerts in the arena, like, sitting on, like, the boxes that all the equipment comes in, like, it's just it's super cool, and I love it for her because I just think it's a really accepting way to grow up, and I think it also instills a lot of confidence. I mean, sis, she behaves so well in groups of adults. All her teachers are always like, "She's so good." I'm like, "Yeah, it's because kid's like kid can hang."
Absolutely. Um, so, as I said, you've done so much. Is there anything that you still want to do, in your career? Is there anything left that you haven't done yet?
Yeah. I mean, gosh, there's so much left. It's like I think I would still be doing this at this point? I did not. I thought I was just like a, young adult, like having some kicks and I would move on to something else. But now that I'm here, I don't know. There's so much more that I want to do and that I plan to do. I mean, you name it, I want to do it. I really want to help leave a lasting mark in the history of burlesque and moving that needle forward. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's definitely more. There's gonna be more shows, bigger shows, more film, maybe a book. Who knows? There's a lot of stories to tell, Chris.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, listen, Angie, it's been absolutely wonderful speaking with you. At the end of these conversations, I always love, offering guests what do you, an opportunity to plug what you're doing, your shows, obviously what your, any books or podcasts or services. What have you got going on?
Absolutely. Well, I have a podcast that my husband and I have started pretty recently. We're moving into our second season now. It's called Showing Off, and we talk to other showbiz professionals, most of whom we've worked with in some capacity. And, we talk about the journey. And my favorite thing to talk about on that show is like the hardships, like
Mm,
the worst times, the times that you
yeah,
thought like, oh, I flubbed that audition, like I crashed that show, because some people do that and they don't come back from
yeah,
it. And so I love to get into those stories and just talk about how you get back up, and share that information and give advice to young performers and young entertainers coming up because I think it's really important, to just everybody likes to talk about the wins and the victories. I
yeah.
I like to talk about a lot of the failures.
They're absolutely essential to your growth, in your career. You've got to
Absolutely.
fail. If you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough.
No, and if you can't get up, you're not going to make it.
Yeah, that's
You
it.
can't, if you can't get up, you're not going to make it. You get up a couple of times, getting knocked down doesn't mean anything anymore. It's just another day, pop back up, keep it moving. And that applies, I think, to every single thing in life,
Absolutely. Yeah.
no matter what you do, you hit the challenges, you have to recover,
Yeah.
because that's just another step in the ladder. So we've got that. It's called Showing Off with Brian Newman and Angie Pontani. And, we have our show, Brian Newman After Dark, and that's our
Mhm.
big production stage show that we work on together. And we're going to be announcing
Nice.
tour dates for that very soon. So that's like a ongoing thing that happens all year long. So there's always lots going on.
And to find out information for that, have you got a website or?
Oh, yeah, for sure. You can go to angiepontani.com or follow me on Instagram, Angie Pontani, where I'm always doing fun stuff.
Awesome. Amazing. Angie, as I said, wonderful speaking with you and hearing about your incredible career. And thank you so much for jumping on and having a chat.
Thank you, Chris. I've never told those stories before. That was really nice. It was like very cathartic.
Yeah, I'm glad to be getting exclusive.
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. Alrighty, we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you so much. Bye.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. Big thanks to Angie for coming on the show and sharing all of her amazing stories with us. And of course, big thanks to you guys as well for listening and enjoying the show. Genuinely means the world to us that you're out there listening to all these episodes and having a good time. If anything from today's episode sparked your curiosity, you'll find more information about Angie and her work and some of the things we talked about in this episode in the show notes or over on her website, angiepontani.com. We also have full video versions of these episodes over on YouTube, where we cut in lots of pictures and videos that help spice up the story a little bit for you guys. You can also find us or chat to us on our socials. We are No Ordinary Monday Podcast, and we're on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Next week on the show, we step into a world where one wrong move could be the last one that you ever make. I'm joined by bomb disposal expert Ben Remfrey. Ben has spent decades working in this dangerous profession, from his early days in the military to clearing battlefields and unexploded munitions in war zones all over the globe, and today he runs the world's leading training center for explosive ordnance disposal, which is based out of Kosovo. Ben takes us inside one of the most dangerous professions on the planet, including his own surreal experience of clearing burning oil fields in Kuwait after the Gulf War. It was a landscape that he describes as something straight out of Dante's Inferno. And he also talks about a lucky escape he had after encountering a landmine. It's an amazing story and I can't wait for you guys to hear it, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out. If you enjoyed today's episode, there are 4 simple ways that you can support the show. Number 1, follow or subscribe on your podcast app. Number 2, leave us a quick rating or maybe a short review. Number 3, share the episode with a friend, a family member, or maybe a colleague. And then number 4, support the show at buymeacoffee.com/noordinarymonday. If you do any one of these things, it helps us keep the show independent, we can avoid adverts, and allows me to keep bringing you thoughtful, story-driven conversations week after week. And that's it for this episode. This podcast is independently produced, hosted, and edited by me, Chris Barron. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, and we'll see you next Monday.